Hi, I'm Rob from robnunphoto.com. Welcome to SCL, the Subject, Composition and Light Photography Podcast. In fact, let me just check I am recording. I am recording. Excellent. Well, SCL, what it's all about? Well, it's a bit like my audio diary through the wonderful world of photography. You'll have to forgive me if I'm getting my worms a little bit mixed up. For some reason, I feel a bit fuddled recording the podcast today. I guess it's because I've got so many exciting things to talk about. A couple of things before I started. If you're watching this on YouTube or on the video stream, if I put it on there, that all depends on whether the Logitech C920 gives me a nice file to work with, because sometimes there can be a bit of a sync problem with the large files. But anyway, went over to Portsmouth today to pick a couple of things up for Suzanne and nipped into a charity shop, and lo and behold, what did I find but a Olympus pen, an EE3. Now, I've never seen one of these at a car boot sale or in charity shops or anything like that. I've only ever seen them on eBay, and they tend to be quite expensive. I think the EE, the electronic eye one, isn't quite as sought after, because I think it's just like a point and shoot camera. All you do is you set your film ASA or ISO on the front, a bit like a Trip 35, but then there's no focusing, there's no zone focus or anything like that. It's all fully automatic. All you do is you kind of wind it on and you take the picture. However, there is a slight problem. Although I got it for a song, I think I paid £7 for it. It's the shutter blades, the aperture blades are frozen. They're not moving. Now, I'm pretty sure that the light meter, the selenium light meter, is fine, because if I point it again towards something bright, it makes a different sound than if I point it towards something dark. But what I can see is that those blades aren't moving at all, even when I put it on the aperture settings for when you're using flash. Nothing's happening there at all. I've gone online and it does look like it's fairly easy to take apart, and because it's an infinity focus lens, I don't think it's quite as tricky as trying to take a Trip 35 apart. So I'll be doing a video about that and then getting that little beauty working. The Olympus pen basically is a half frame camera. It's on 35mm film. For each frame where you're normally going to get one photo, you get two, so you can get 72 shots on a roll of film, which is quite a lot. So yeah, can't wait to have a go with that. And I also received through the post from Brooklyn, New York City, dead excited about this one as well, a book by Michael Ernest Sweet called The Human Fragment. So make sure you look that up on the internet, by the Brooklyn Arts Press. Street photographer. Very good, amazing inspirational work. I'll be doing obviously a full review on this over the next week or so. But thanks, Michael, for sending me a copy of that. Really looking forward to getting stuck into those photographs and what I've seen already. It looks very, very good. So I've been off for a couple of weeks. We're a bit skint at the moment, so haven't really gone away on holiday this year or done anything. But it did give me an opportunity to go out and take quite a few photos and go on a few photo walks. And the first one I want to talk about is something that happened yesterday, which was a flight past by the Avro Vulcan bomber that's run by a charity organisation actually. So, what is the Vulcan? So the Vulcan, if you're on your phone now or you're on your computer, just do a Google search for Vulcan bomber. And basically, it's an obsolete nuclear bomber that was used by the British from 1960s to 1980s. And initially, it was designed to be a nuclear deterrent to carry our nuclear weapon and to attack Russia in the case of a nuclear war. But then it was adapted to lots of different roles, and then the only time it was ever used as a real bombing flight was in the Falklands in 1982, when it did the longest bombing run ever tried, when it travelled 4,000 miles to hit the airfield at Port Stanley and to stop it being used by fighters, and they did hit the airfield. This was before the days of laser-guided bombs. And the great thing about the Vulcan is that although it weighs about 250,000 pounds and it's 111 feet wide, it can go at 644 miles an hour, and it can get up to 60,000 feet. And it can do a barrel roll as well, just like a fighter. And in fact, the Vulcans were really famous for being incredibly manoeuvrable, especially at high altitude. But in the in the late 60s and 70s, when, with the advent of surface-to-air missiles and things like that, they developed low altitude flying capability. And again, the Vulcan was really well known for flying incredibly low. And in fact, in military exercises in America, they used to fly Vulcans down the Grand Canyon. There's all sorts of stories on the internet where the Vulcans would come back and they'd have bits of trees stuck in the underneath where they've been skimming across the desert. I think there's a story as well of where one came back and it had some power line stuck on the tail, where they'd hit a power line. They took a power line out, not because they were flying over it, but because they were flying under a power line. And this is a big aircraft. So anyway, it's quite an amazing aircraft, and for a bomber being incredibly manoeuvrable. And it's always a great sight to see, because it's probably, I think, along with Concorde, one of the prettiest jets ever made, because it's got this big delta wing on it, really distinctive shape and a distinctive noise as well. So back to the story. So my mate Dave sent me a text saying, look, by the way, if you're down by the coast, the Vulcan's doing a display down at Bournemouth, and it's coming back along the coast. And I think he said they would be using visual flight rules or something to get from one place to the other. So I guess they're just flying along, and there's a chance you might see it. And it's been years since I've seen a Vulcan. And the Vulcan, there's only one left that's flying. And as I say, it's not run by the military anymore. It's run by a charity organisation. And I think unfortunately what they found out is that because the airframe of the aeroplane is so old now, due to metal fatigue, I think next season is going to be its last season of being able to actually fly around. After that, they're going to have to ground it, because they just don't know whether the aluminium used in it and the different alloys are going, there's a chance they could break. So it'll just turn into a museum piece that will taxi up and down runways every now and again. So, it's a rare sight to see. So I went down to Stokes Bay, and I thought, right, and imagine Stokes Bay. It's a bay, so it's a U-shaped, massive long beach with like a headland at one end and another headland at the other. Funnily enough. In like a shallow U shape, but it's very flat. So you've got the shingle beach, and then you've got like a walkway, and then you've got fields behind it. So you've got a really good view. Because I wanted to go somewhere, because I didn't know where the aeroplane would be coming from. I knew roughly it would be coming from my west, but would it be going inland? Would it be flying over the Isle of Wight? Would it be flying along the Solent? I didn't have a clue. So I kind of perched myself on the beach, so I could have a good sort of 360-degree view around, and then I just waited. And I texted my mate Dave and said that I'm at the beach, and he was at the beach in Haley Island, which is further to the east, and waited, and then I heard a couple of aircraft going over, and I kind of struggled to get my camera out because it was before 4 o'clock, and the Vulcan was meant to be doing its display at 4 and then coming back afterwards, and I kind of got my camera out, and there's a couple of Spitfires flying over. So I tried, but they were kind of right overhead and quite high up, so I didn't really get any shots of those. And then I started doing a piece, on my phone to kind of record what I was doing. And then then in the distance, inland, I could see a Lancaster bomber. So I kind of, in fact, if you watch the video on YouTube that I've done, I'll put a link in the show notes. You'll see that. And have I said that this is show 240 for the 31st of August? Anyway, that's what it is. So if you look for SCL 240 on robnutphoto.com. So there's this Vulcan bomber in the distance. So I got my lens out and I was focusing on it, and it was a long way away. And because it was a long way away, it was kind of in between trees and things. And I got a few shots of that, but I was like, oh, God. And then I was thinking, well, if the Vulcan's that far inland, I'm not going to see it very well. So I was there thinking a bit, and it was quite windy, and I must admit, although I had a coat on and it is August, it was a little bit chilly. So I was there, I was waiting. There's a few people walking up and down on the promenade, kind of look at me like, what's this guy doing? Because I had my 7300 on, but I've just got a lens hood for it as well, and the lens hood is pretty big, so it's a big old lens. So I'm standing there and I'm kind of chatting with Dave over the text, taking the mickey. And then I hear another sound. I look behind me, and there's an aircraft quite high flying east. So I've missed it. And I look at it and I aim it through the 7300. And I think, I could be wrong, but when I text Dave and said what it was a Canberra, which is another type of old RAF aircraft. So now I was thinking, oh, God, I'm not going to get to see the Vulcan very well. It's either going to fly over the Isle of Wight, which is far to the south, or it's going to fly inland, or it's going to be too high to see. Or, it would just be the delta triangle shape of it. It's not going to be very good. So I'm there. But Dave texts me and says, look, when you see it, just send me a text. So I'm standing there, I'm kind of waiting. And you're looking around like 180 degrees because it's just going to be a speck, isn't it? And it's quite a cloudy day, and I'm thinking, well, if he's at altitude, I'm not going to see him anyway. And then all of a sudden, coming over the Solent from Southampton, I see the Vulcan coming, and he's low. I mean, he looked like he was 100 feet off the water, but he was probably more like 200 feet. So, I line up the 70-300. I'm at 300 mil. I can see him coming in because they have quite a distinctive smoke trail, the Vulcans, and that's kind of like coming out of the back. So I can see he's still a long way away, but he's coming in low, and there's something great about seeing a big aircraft coming in low, and he's coming towards the headland at the end of Stokes Bay. I think he probably was doing a flyover at Leon-Solent because there's an airfield there, and then you've got the Navy base, HMS Sultan. So he's coming in, I'm clicking in, I'm getting a shot, and he's coming in. Again, you look at the video, you see all the photographs, and he's really low, and then as he comes along, he's now sort of going inland. He's so low, he's behind the trees. So I'm like, I've lost him. He's behind the trees. He's going inland. And I could see a little bit further up, there's some more where the trees broke. So I run up the beach, back along the beach, kind of thing. I set up again, and I'm waiting. I can hear him, but I can't see him. And then all of a sudden, over, probably about a mile away, he bursts over the trees and comes flying over the beach. And he's probably half a mile from me at probably about, again, it seemed a lot lower. It was probably about 150 feet, but he was probably really about 250 or 500 feet, and he kind of goes across the top of Stokes Bay, and I'm there, clicking away, at 300 mil, and then as he's going out over the sea, kind of banks over. And I've got some quite interesting shots. I haven't heavily processed them for the video because I wanted to get out quickly, and he's banking, and I can see him, and then he straightens up, banks the other way, and then he flies off towards wherever he's going. And I tell you what, there's nothing quite as moving, I think, if you like this sort of thing to watch, like a big jet, really noisy, massive thing, and it's so pretty, the Vulcan, as it's kind of rolling along, and you're firing away. It definitely brings a tear to your eye to see this grand old lady of the sky. So anyway, that was really exciting. Love it. And I think next year I'm definitely going to do some of the air shows, I think, because I want to do a bit more of that, because I do enjoy taking pictures of aeroplanes. So anyway, what other things I've been up to over the last couple of weeks since the last podcast? Well, I did a photo walk around Portsmouth that I've been planning to do for a long time, and it was a nice day, and I packed all my gear together, and what I wanted to do was walk up from the ferry at Portsmouth, where the Gosport Ferry sort of goes up, along sort of Southsea and up towards South Parade Pier, with the idea of then walking back through the sort of built-up bit of Portsmouth back to the ferry that way. But yeah, it was quite good. Again, what I tend to do is I have a sort of list of things that I want to do in terms of photo walks and stuff, and this is one of them. And I got some nice shots. I think the thing that annoyed me was that when probably about a third of the way into the photo walk, I was walking along the old walls of Portsmouth, where near the Round Tower, and it was quite early. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was like I don't know if they were a wedding party or something. They were dressed the blokes were in suits, and there was a couple of women in nice dresses, and they were like drinking champagne or something, and they were just standing there. And, they made a nice group, and they're having a laugh, and I walked past, and I thought, well, if it's a wedding, why haven't they got a photographer there? And I thought, mate, I wonder if I should ask. And I thought, oh, no, I'll keep on going. And afterwards, I could have kicked myself. I thought, why on earth didn't I just say to them, I say, hi, you guys look like you're having a good time. Where's your photographer? And it could be maybe they were going to a wedding or something. And they might have said, oh, we haven't got one or something. And I could have said, do you want some shots? And then I could have taken some photographs. It could have been a nice little photo shoot, given them my card, said, give me your email, send me an email, and then I'll send you back the shots. But I didn't, I bottled it. So I was well gutted after that. I was thinking, ugh. But I think I made up for it with some other quite interesting photos. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes on robnarphoto.com. Just look for show 240. But it kind of spoke to me in the way that, if you and I really believe this, if you see something that you think you should take a photograph of, you have to do it. Because if you don't, it's like you're killing a little bit of yourself inside, that impulse that, hey, this could make a great photograph. It probably won't. But if you sort of dismiss it and don't do it, gradually over time, that impulse will disappear. And that's a sad day indeed. So, make sure that if you're in a situation where you could take some photographs, what are they going to do if you ask? They're going to say no, aren't they? So what? Then you move on. And then do it. So yeah, next time I'll definitely won't miss that sort of opportunity. Remember, we've had the photo assignment, Macro World, over on the robnunphoto.com Flickr group, and I hadn't done any macro photography at all. So I thought, right, sod it. I grabbed my camera, grabbed my 135mm 2.8 Helios lens, I think it is, with the extension tubes and the EF to M42 adapter, my flash, and went to the Forest of Beer, which is it's a forestry commission owned place, so it's basically where they grow trees, and there's some old oak woodland around there as well, with the idea of wandering around and hopefully finding some spiders or bugs to take pictures of. The main part of it, that's called 100 Acres, was packed with people, so I went over to the Forest of Beer bit, which is the forestry commission, and kind of wandered around and it was a nice walk. Unfortunately, all the flowers and all the plants were past their best, being August, and I couldn't find a spider to save my life. But I played around a little bit with doing some macro on some flowers. I actually, for the first time in a long time, used some flash outside because, being forest, it was dark. So I got the old Yongnuo 565, I think it was, the TTL flash, clagged it up to my 600D with the TTL lead I've got, gelled it so it was slightly green, and then blatted some trees and things, and I used it to make the macro photography a little bit sharper by freezing the frame, and that was quite good. I tell you what I did do, which I was glad I experimented with again, was moving the lens during longer exposures, just to get those blurred shots. And I think that's something that perhaps as digital photographers we don't play around with enough. I know I definitely don't. You kind of get obsessed with just taking sharp photographs all the time. But when you're in a situation where it is a little bit dimmer, or maybe you've got some ND filters for the front of your lens to spread out the shutter speed, just have a shutter speed of 1/4 of a second or something like that. Press the button and move the camera like up and down, or straight up or across, or spin the focus or spin your zoom ring, and you get all sorts of really cool in-camera shots that you don't need to use Photoshop for. Obviously, you don't want to overuse it, because things like zoom blurs and where you make those abstracts where you kind of spin the camera around, they can get quite boring quite fast. But I think by doing it every now and again, you've got the skill in your toolbox, and it'll also mean that when something will pop up, maybe you're out with a subject, a model or something, you think, I tell you what could be really cool if we do a bit of a zoom blur on the shot, just to kind of provide a bit of drama, give it a go. So that was quite good. Another thing I got up to, I say finally, I haven't had it that long. You may remember I got the 70-300 IS a few weeks ago for a song, and I thought it was really important that I got the comparison review. And what I did was I did a video of the 55-250 versus IS, that is, versus as a 70-300 IS. So, for the past few years, I've used the Canon EFS 55-250, as that's my telephoto lens. It's the one I've got, and I love that lens. I think it's really sharp. I think it's great as a portrait lens as well. It's incredibly light, the 55-250. You don't feel it on your shoulder when it's in your camera bag or on your camera, and it's a great price. On new or secondhand. I mean, I got mine secondhand a few years ago. But as you'll remember, I got an opportunity to get a 70-300 IS, the newer version, for, I think I spent 130 quid on it, which is really, really, really cheap. And I've kind of had this conundrum, and I've still got it to a certain extent, of what do I do with the lenses? I'm an amateur. I'd have no need, and I can't really justify keeping two lenses. I can't have a 70-300 and a 55-250. So I wanted to do a really good comparison review of, which lens is the best lens in terms of sharpness, in terms of the IS, the image stabilization, which is better, the reach, that sort of stuff. And again, I'll put a link to the video in the show notes on robnonphoto.com. But to cut a long story short, basically there isn't that much difference in sharpness, I found, between the 55 to 250 and 7300. They're both really good. If you compare them with each other, one isn't really better than the other, and that includes shooting wide open or stopping them down to like f11 or f8. Where the real differences come in are the image stabilization. The image stabilization on the 7300 is significantly better. You can probably use the 55 to 250, I would say, at 250 millimeters against a static subject, so something that isn't moving, handheld, down to about 125th of a second, maybe a 60th of a second. Whereas the 70 to 300 IS system will take you easily down to a 60th of a second, and maybe, if you're very, very steady and you take a number of shots, you can shoot at 300 millimeters at a 30th of a second, and you'll get a good enough picture of a static subject, which I think, is pretty amazing. That is really, really good. Obviously, with the 7300, you've got that extra 50 mil of reach, but, with an 18 megapixel camera like the 600D and other, newer cameras, you can crop an awful long way. And the difference between 250 and 300 isn't very much at all. What was quite good and was quite surprising actually was when you I put my Jessup's 2x teleconverter onto the 70-300, because being an EF lens it fits, and that was great, taking it up to 600 millimeters. It was a little bit soft. You're losing a little bit of detail and you're losing autofocus as well. But for a static subject, it seemed pretty good. That was quite nice. And my conclusion kind of was that if you've already got the 55 to 250, I don't think, unless you can get one very, very cheap like I did, I don't think it's worth upgrading to the 70 to 300 IS. I think you're better off putting your money towards either a super wide like a 10 to 22, or I think they do a 10 to 18 now, don't they, Canon? Or, hanging on and then trying out, an L lens. I know they're a lot more expensive. I haven't got any experience of L lenses, so I can't, tell you whether they're the 100-300L or there's a 70-300L, isn't there? Or whether you should go for something like the 70-200 f4L non-IS, which is not that much more expensive than a brand new 70-300. But overall, I think I'm probably going to keep the 70-300 IS and maybe sell the 55 to 250, because I've kind of got in my head there's two lenses that I think I need. Now I don't really need them, but I've kind of got in my head that I need them, and those lenses are either and or the 60mm 2.8 macro. I feel I need a macro lens. I don't know why, I just feel I need one, because I go out and I use my M42s with the extension tubes, or I put my extension tubes, my Canon extension tubes, Canon copy extension tubes on my telephoto, and I've got to take an awful lot of shots to get a sharp one, and I think that a proper Canon macro lens could help me with that, and I really enjoy doing macro photography. Or I need and again I don't really need it, but the new Canon 10 to 18 super wide, which is about £300, really appeals to me, a super wide lens. Because, I enjoy architecture photography, urban landscape photography, that sort of thing. And I think with super wide lenses, you can get that dramatic effect. So I think I'll probably sell the 55 to 250, maybe some other stuff as well, and then pick up a 60mm macro or the 10 to 18. I don't know, what do you think? Send me an email, Rob on scalespeed@gmail.com, or visit robnonphoto.com, or put some links. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, if I put it on YouTube, put some comments below the video. So there we go. Anyway, so that was the 70-300. Oh yeah, and while I had a weird experience while I was excuse me, just taking a drink. A weird experience while I was recording the video. I did it down by Pretty's Hard, and what you have, Gosport is a peninsula, so it sticks out kind of into the sea, sort of. There's water comes behind it, and then to the east you've got Portsmouth, which is another peninsula, and in between you've got the harbour, the big harbour. And so from Pretty's Hard, which is the back of Gosport, you can look up over to Portsmouth Dockyard, where all the Navy ships were. So I set my tripod there, and there was a Navy ship there, one of the new type, I don't know, the Daring class, I think they are, the destroyers. And basically, I used one of the ships as my reference to zoom in, zoom out, and test the lenses at different f-stops, different shutter speeds, and all this sort of stuff. But it was deserted. There was nobody down there. It was quite a blustery day, so it wasn't a particularly nice day to be out for a walk. So anyway, I'm there. I parked up, and I'm there. I've got my tripod, and I'm taking pictures. This car pulls up, parks right next to mine. Now, there's no cars for a mile each way. So, so there's no reason why would he park right next to me. But anyway, he parks right next to my car, bumper to bumper. He gets out, and then with his phone starts taking pictures in the direction that I'm taking pictures of. He's probably right next to me to my right, and then he goes around my back and takes pictures to my left. Just taking pictures across the harbour towards these ships or in another direction. And I'm like, hello? I said, it's a nice day for taking photos, isn't it? And he goes, doesn't really say anything. I'm like, why is this guy here? He's fairly smartly dressed. I think he was a secret policeman or something like that, and he was, keeping an eye on me because he thought maybe I was a spy taking pictures of the Navy's latest warships. But I don't know, that would be a bit stupid, because if you go on Google Earth, you can have a good look at the dockyard anyway, every single bit of it. And if you've got a long lens, you can take whatever pictures you want of the Navy ships. And if you go to the dockyard, you can be right next to them as well. So there's no secrets there. But it added a little bit of drama to that particular photo walk. What else? Went over to Hailing Island to see my mate Dave. Unfortunately, it started raining, so I didn't get many shots there. So that was a bit of a washout. But we had a good laugh. I showed him how to do some video editing. The dockyard. Right, this is a photo walk I did on Friday, and Amazon Local were doing an offer on dockyard tickets. This is the historic dockyard that is in Portsmouth, and we're very lucky round here in the fact that we have the historic dockyard, which is attached to the proper Navy dockyard. And in it is HMS Victory, there's the Mary Rose, there's lots of little exhibits, there's HMS Warrior, and then as part of the same kind of museum group, you also have HMS Alliance, which is the submarine museum where they got a submarine out of the water, and there's the Royal Marines Museum in Eastney, and there's the Explosion Museum, which is just around the corner from where we are here. And for £25, I think it is, you could buy a ticket for 2 adults for a whole year to go back as many times as you like. Now, I've never been on the Victory. Lived in Gosport virtually all my life, but worked in other places, but been here most of the time. Never been on the Victory. Seen it lots of times, gone over to the and had a look around. Never been on the Victory. Never been on the Warrior. Never been in the Mary Rose. These big. I've never been up the spinning Tower, actually. I've still got to do that. And I thought, no, I can't turn this down. This is too good. And to go back again and again, because I thought, what a great place to test cameras, test lenses, do videos from as well. So I thought, sod it. So I went online, bought it, and then I've got 2 tickets. So one for me, one for Suzanne or Oliver. Go over there and went on the Victory. And what I did was I went very light, which actually was a mistake. But I thought, no, all I'm going to take is my 600D. I'm going to take the 40mm 2.8 pancake lens that I got at Christmas with the 600D T3 Ice. It came as a free goodie with it. And I'll take my Trip 35 with some film. And the idea was to do it as almost like a field trial for the 40mm 2.8. And also, to do a video about that, and just to kind of challenge myself to do just use one lens. However, what I didn't know at the time, which I've done a bit of research on the internet, was that Friday was also the paying off day of HMS Illustrious, which is the last of the Royal Navy's aircraft carriers until they get the 2 new huge ones in a few years' time. And so I kind of got to the dockyard, started wandering around, and I could see Illustrious, and they had all these marching bands. They had helicopters flying over. They had a flypast by a Royal Navy Sea Vixen jet and another jet. The Royal Navy Lynx helicopter did an aerobatical display over it, and I'm trying to record all this using a 40mm lens. It doesn't work. Things are too far away. So I was a bit gutted about that. I went around a couple of little museums, but the only big attraction I went on was the Victory. And the Victory at the moment is quite unique because they've actually taken down all the rigging, all the cross bits, because every now and again I have to get them down and maintain them, replace the rotten wood, etc. there's a lot of work going on the victory. But it was great. It was fantastic. I tell you what, I'm going to go back fairly soon when there's a lot less people around, because it was one of the last days of the summer holidays for the kids. So it was pretty packed walking around, very hot as well. But the ability to well, you're touching history, aren't you? You can stand where Nelson in 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar, where he got shot and he fell down, and where they dragged him downstairs and where he died downstairs. I guess maybe for people from the rest of the world, you kind of think, oh, what's the big deal? But for English people and British people, the Battle of Trafalgar and Nelson, it's really part of the makeup of what it means to be British. And it was one of those kind of turning points, I guess, you could say for world history as well, when Britain defeated Napoleon and the French and the Spanish at Trafalgar, because it meant then that Napoleon wasn't going to invade England, and kind of eventually led to us kicking him out. But anyway, it's great to walk around. I would have liked to be able to talk to some of the people because it's still a commissioned ship, the Victory, even though it's in a dry dock. So I would have liked to talk to the people a lot more on there, because they've got guides. But it was very, very busy. But it took about an hour to walk around the ship, and took lots of photographs. And the 40mm 2.8 was great. And I think one of the great things about using a fixed focus length lens like a 40mm or a 50mm, especially on a crop sensor body like my 600D, is that it's a little bit telephoto. It by definition gets you closer to the subject than you normally would get. And one of the things we always say about how you improve your photography, it's always a get closer, fill the frame. And if you've got a crop sensor body with a 40mm lens on, or a 50mm, you are closer, because a 40mm lens on a 600D, I think you timed it by 1.6 and 1.5, so it's more like a 60mm lens, which means that, it is by no means wide angle. I mean, a wide angle lens on a full frame body is 28mm. And this is the same as using a 60mm frame for 60mm lens. So you really are quite zoomed in. And although that can be very frustrating at the time, because you can't get back far enough a lot of the time to get the photo you want, when you actually look at the photos afterwards, you do a lot less cropping, and they're a lot more, I think they're a lot more in your face. They're a lot more, there's a lot more keepers, I think, because it's very easy to be lazy with a wide angle zoom, to just have it on 18mm or 17mm, and you kind of get the whole view, and then maybe you crop it afterwards. But with a 40mm or a 50mm prime, or 85 or something like that, you're right in there and you're isolating your subjects. The things that you found interesting, the reason why you put your camera to your eye to take that photo, is right there. And I'd recommend anyone to have a go. If you haven't got a prime, grab one, or even stick your zoom on 50mm and have a wander around. However, saying that, I really regretted not having my 18-55, my 7300 lenses with me, because it did mean that I missed some shots, especially of like the Lynx helicopters doing its display, which I was a bit gutted about. So, but there we go. I think what I'd really like is, what would it be? Something like a 35mm, a lens that would go on my 600D that would be just the same as having a 50mm on if it was a full frame body. So there we go, the wrong lens. So I've had a quite busy 2 weeks. I'm a bit gutted because it's back to work tomorrow. It's Sunday here in the UK. It's 3:10. I've got to put the Sunday lunch on in a minute, and I'm thinking, I've got to go to work tomorrow. But I'm committed to going out and doing a lot more photography, taking a lot more videos, putting a lot more stuff up on YouTube, just to kind of share what I learn with you guys and girls. Because this is, I think it's great to have a passion in life, and I think my passion definitely, as far as hobbies go, is definitely photography and producing videos for YouTube, recording the podcast, putting stuff on the blog, because I get so much joy out of seeing what everybody else is doing on Flickr, for example, and learning about photography from other people, the kind of constant feedback loop you get from people with comments and emails, and just seeing what everybody else does as well. It really is very rewarding. And I think as blokes as well, I mean, this is probably true as women, but we don't always have a creative outlet, do we? we tend to, make things or fix things. But I think with photography, it really is artistic, isn't it? If we move beyond the technical, it is artistic, and I really enjoy that artistic bit. And I really enjoy doing the stuff for YouTube and doing videos and sharing stuff. So I hope this week's long podcast hasn't been too long. One more thing. New photo assignment for September. As usual, this kind of runs in parallel with what Amateur Photography a year are doing over at Amateur Photographer. But the assignment is in a faraway place. So take some photos, something that speaks to you about in a faraway place, and post them on the robnunphoto.com Flickr group. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes at robnunphoto.com for show 240. We're not going on holiday, so I don't know. For me, it's probably taking photographs of something that maybe looks like it's from a faraway place. Maybe it looks a little bit exotic, something like that. I'm not quite sure, but as ever, if you can spare the time to have a go, it's a great way of making you think outside of the box about your photography and perhaps doing something that you normally wouldn't have done on that particular day, and it'll get you out shooting rather than staying in. Well, I think that's more than enough from me for this week. My name's Rob from robnunphoto.com. Remember, please email me with questions or suggestions for the podcast or the website for YouTube. You can email me scalespeeder@gmail.com. That's scalespeeder@gmail.com. Remember, SCL is part of the Tech Podcasts community, and you can find other great tech podcasts over at techpodcasts.com. And please go over and join the Flickr group as well at Flickr. Just search out the robnunphoto.com Flickr group. Links are again here in the show notes for show 240. It's free. It's great. There's loads of fantastic work that goes in there. And please take part in the photo assignment if you feel like it. Right, so that's it from me. Thanks for watching it if you're watching this on YouTube or somewhere else. But most of all, thanks to you for downloading and listening to the podcast. My name's Rob from robnunphoto.com, and hopefully pretty soon I'll see you on Flickr.